Their mic's on.
I'm left-handed, so 6.
Make sure your mics are on too, because last time the live stream put. Is there a door open or something?
No, they turned on the air because it was really, really hot in here, and then all these people started coming. And then,
Well, what was the federal case that was But yeah, but that's context.
you ready?
Yeah, this will restart and I'll boot up. That's why I always have a hard copy.
Yeah, mine just booted up here. Sorry. Good evening. I would like to call this meeting back to order and ask anyone willing and able to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like to remind everyone to please turn on their microphones. I would like to start off with introductions. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Laird. I'm the board president, and to my left is
Bo Wright, Superintendent of Schools.
George Day Marteau, attorney for the district.
Good evening, James O'Brien, board member.
Hi, Anne-Marie Straczynski, board member.
Pat McHugh, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources.
Good evening, Dina Wilson, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction.
Hi, Andy Whitmore, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
Good evening, Nelana Selm, Assistant Superintendent of Student and Family Services.
Hello, I'm Irene Fung, Student Representative.
Good evening, Nikki LaPlaca, board member.
Good evening, Di McBride, board member.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Karen Flanagan, school district clerk.
Good evening, May Abdullah, Board Vice President.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to add another item to the agenda. We'll be adding 13B, action on the Warren claim. And now I would like to hear our student representative, our report.
Hello. So today, our student council officers were able to meet with Mr. Wright and Mr. Whitmore, and we were able to discuss more actions we can take to help our school district be more sustainable. And we're happy to be able to announce that our school district will be providing more recycling stations for our high school, possibly more Dyson air dryers, hand dryers, to save the use of paper towels. And the student council will also be working on submitting a budget proposal. So hopefully in the future it will be easier for us to have the funding to make our schools more sustainable. And we'll also be possibly working with RIT. We're currently communicating with them. So their students can possibly use our school district as a place to apply their research in sustainability, and just so they can have real-world experience and our school district can benefit from their studies. And the student council is also happy to announce that we'll be holding our voter registration drive the 19th and 20th of this month. It will be for all students turning 18 before December 31st of 2020. And we're also excited to announce that Harry Bronson, our state assemblyman, and Stephen Schultz, our town supervisor, will be joining us on the 19th to interact with students. And so students will be able to see who they're really voting for and who will be representing them in government. And that's all.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. This brings us to our public forum. In this portion of the public forum is for any items that are not on our agenda. We would ask any speakers to limit their speaking to about 3 minutes. If you would like to speak on an agenda item during the meeting, when that item comes up, please raise your hand to be recognized. First up is Ms. Buck.
Flashing is on.
Is
Yes.
flashing red or green?
Tap it once.
Press, there you go.
Good evening, Sheila Buck, President of the Rush-Henrietta Employees Association Teachers Chapter. As I was contemplating what to say tonight, I thought, what could I say that you haven't heard before? And sitting through a couple of budget presentations now, I thought, it seems like I have heard this before. And that, in essence, is the great divide in this whole contractual dispute. The RHEA teachers want to be fairly compensated. We want to be able to use our skills and our professionalism to help the children of Rush-Henrietta. But in the budget presentations I have sat through year after year, I don't hear we value teachers. I don't hear we invest in our teaching staff. The slogan, a great place to learn, a great place to work, I'm sorry to say, it doesn't cut it anymore. And as someone who's worked here for 24 years, that makes me sad. Teachers come together to support each other. Working together, we coach each other, we listen, we advise each other. We even reduced our salary schedule in the recession to save jobs. Because of this, because of our goodwill to each other and our students, we are now behind. Our teachers work 2 and 3 jobs. Our new teachers struggle in the summer. We understand budget constraints. What we don't understand is why, given the budget constraints, RH doesn't value teachers like our neighboring districts. How is it, given the tax cap, that other Monroe County schools are able to pay their teachers $7,000 to $10,000 more a year? How is it that other Monroe County school districts are able to allow teachers to continue earning through their entire career? Value, it's not just talk. The RHEA teachers ask the Board of Education to invest in the best. #1 district in Monroe County, teachers are almost tired of hearing of it because there was a wonderful breakfast and there are nice words, but now it seems rather hollow. Not only is the salary important, but the faith in us to do our jobs, to serve our community, to get what needs to be done, and more. That faith needs to be there. Invest in the best means we had a good thing going here in Rush-Henrietta. Micromanaging, power struggles instead of collaboration have eroded the workplace, so that now it's often mentioned as it used to be a great place to work. Teachers can be heard saying, remember when we had time to collaborate? Remember when creativity was a part of the teaching process? Timelines that cannot stretch without fear of reprisals, assessments that occur more and more often. These things make teachers worry. Are we teaching or are we becoming robots? Did you know, for example, that in 4th grade, students are taking or reflecting about tests 60 days of the year? In 6th grade, it's 90 days. What have we done that we cannot go 2 days without giving a child a test? When does the child learn? My father was a statistician who made his living as a quality control manager. He used to say, you don't test quality into a product, you build it. Teachers are quality control managers of their classrooms, and they would say, you don't test learning into a child, you teach it. It's time for administration and the Board of Education to come together and invest. Invest in the best. The best schools, the best teachers deserve fair pay and time to teach. Thank you.
Next, Dave Zarbone. Dwayne Zarbone.
Thank you. My name is Dwayne Sabone, 250 Mystic Lane, Henrietta. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with the board for a few moments. Been a resident of the town for 25 years. This is my first opportunity to come and sit before the board, mainly because it's the first time that I felt a need in order to have this opportunity. I come to you as a teacher, as a lead negotiator in a neighboring district, to tell you that it can be done differently. Different than what you're doing, with different results, with different feelings, and with different expressions between the parties. And I would encourage you to consider looking towards difference. I truly believe that when you do things the same way, you get the same results. And living in the town as long as I have, I've had a sense that things have been going the same way. Superintendent Wright, I was incredibly excited when I came to the presentations when you were being interviewed. I felt a heart, sensed a heart in you, which was refreshing. And I was hopeful that that would then play into the relationships with your teachers and with your staff. I don't know if I see that occurring in your negotiations process at this point. I would encourage you to consider how you can connect with your staff through negotiations, as an opportunity to use negotiations as a means of connecting rather than separating. I truly believe that negotiations can be a place where you find common ground and where you set priorities together as a group. Ultimately, you should have shared priorities. Your students are kind of the focus of what you do. And I believe the people likely sitting behind me and the people sitting in front of me have that same focus. So I encourage you all to work together with that as your focus to reach a fair settlement with your teachers. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the town, on behalf of our students in the district, and on behalf of the teachers. So thank you.
Carol LaMonica.
Good evening. My name is Carol LaMonica. I am a vocal general music teacher, and I have taught in this district for 28 years. In 1991, when I walked into my job interview, I was welcomed into the room by Mr. Fred Weingarten, my former jazz band teacher from Webster Central Schools. When the interview was over, I reflected on how things went, and I remember thinking, Rush-Henrietta must be a pretty special place to work if Mr. Weingarten was working here. My vision had been to teach in Webster. My blood was blue and gold, the colors of Webster Central Schools. I was the youngest of 6 kids, all of whom had graduated from Webster Central Schools. My family lived in Webster. My mom had been a church organist in Webster, and my dad was a charter member playing in the Webster Village Band. I was rooted in Webster. Mr. Weingarten told me that he believed in me and that I would do great things in a Rush-Henrietta classroom. I believed in the district and took note not only of the music education our students was receiving, but the overall education that was being provided to our students. I believed in the district so much that I convinced my husband, Tim, to pick up everything that was familiar to us and move our family of 3 children to Rush-Henrietta. After teaching for 12 years in Rush-Henrietta, it was apparent that my vision of living and teaching in Webster had taken a different path. And the reality was that I was destined to teach and live in Rush-Henrietta. In 2003, Tim and I moved our family into our new home. Our children attended preschool at Pinnacle Lutheran Church, continued on to File and Berger, and concluded their education at the high school. My blood by now was running full steam ahead on green and gold. Go Royal Comets. I was attending concerts that my colleagues were directing. My children were involved in sporting events. I was volunteering. I was taking pride of not only being a parent, but an educator in a district I believed in and was proud of. As I am starting to move towards a time in my life where being eligible for retirement is just a few years down the road, I am disheartened by the district I have believed in. The district I have given my entire teaching career to, I've moved my family to, and a district that believed in me as a young, wet behind the ears teacher and hired me all those years ago. I believe my teaching has helped to enrich and shape my community. I no longer believe my community values my work. What I do is worth an annual increase. What I do deserves a wage that reflects my level of expertise and mastery. I hope that this board understands and supports a wage that is not capped, a wage that exceeds the cost of living standards. I hope this board will believe in me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Terry Myron.
This is on, right? If it's green?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Terry Myron, and I teach 7th grade science at Berger. I would like to talk to you about two things this evening, salary and time. But first, I have some wonderful news to share. My sister-in-law, Catherine Torgiano, she's in the audience, who teaches 2nd grade at Crane, won a Golden Apple Award just last week. It was on the news today, and I am so proud of her. She is so deserving of this award. The student that nominated her was one she taught over 20 years ago. Wow. Taking the time when you were 40 to go back and thank a teacher just shows you what a lasting impression Catherine has made on him. Corey Daniels showed up for the award presentation and told Catherine's class about charity work that he and his wife do because of what she taught him. Be kind and do what you can for others. He is paying it forward, helping families in his community, and told these 2nd graders it was because of their teacher, who at one time was his teacher. This is Catherine's 34th year teaching. She is an amazing... She is an amazing educator who goes above and beyond for her students and their families. You wouldn't know this, but she and I were supposed to meet for dinner before the last Board of Ed meeting. But Catherine canceled our dinner plans because she had planned on calling a father of one of her struggling students, and the man was only available to speak to her at 5:30 that evening. They ended up speaking for 45 minutes. On her own time. And I would like you to know that Catherine has been on the same step for 3 years in a row now, making the same salary. No raise at all. And that is impacting her final average salary for retirement. That just doesn't seem right. Are you aware that now that we are working under an expired contract, we essentially have a salary cap for teachers? Once you reach the final step of the pay scale, your salary doesn't increase at all. Actually, Currently, we have some teachers making much less money this year than they did last year because we're working under an expired contract. So the stipends that were given when you were off step no longer exist. They're null and void. I have never heard of such a thing. You work hard and have a year more experience and then make less money. I'm talking $6,000 and $7,000 less. I don't think this would happen in any other profession. I work with many younger teachers who are working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet so they can live, eat, and pay off their student loans. There are many teachers my age who have small businesses or second jobs to offset their salary. Do you need a consultant for Tastefully Simple, Pampered Chef, Tupperware, 31? If so, I've got a teacher for you. Class sizes continue to go up and teachers are expected to do more with less. RH advertises that it is one of the top school districts in Monroe County. That is something I am proud of too. My own children go to school here. I know we have great schools. Yet, if you compare salaries of experienced teachers with 15 years of teaching experience or more to neighboring districts in Monroe County, RH falls short by several thousands of dollars. We're in the bottom third. I don't understand why. Why would the district do this when there's a teacher shortage and it would like to attract the best teachers possible? I don't understand why the district isn't choosing to value the teachers it already has by budgeting for fair pay and benefits. Veteran teachers are feeling underpaid and undervalued here. I believe it is these veteran teachers that create stability to our schools. They help mentor teachers who are new into the career and take on student teachers who want to come into the profession. I am a veteran teacher. I am proud to say that this is my 29th year teaching science, and I love working with 7th graders. Besides teaching, I would like to tell you some other things I do in the district. I'm a Teacher Center Policy Board rep for my school. I volunteer for that. I'm on the Collegial Coaching Committee that helps match up new teachers with mentors. That too is a volunteer position. I design the set for the Roth Spring musical and help run the stage crew. I've created a 7th grade science club that meets after school at Berger. I run SSW, Student Success Workshops, after school on Thursdays. I give a lot of my time to this district. Some I get paid for, but most of it I do not. I have about 120 students. 4 of my students are leaving for a few weeks at different times. 2 have left the country for Iraq. They are going back to visit family that they haven't seen in several years. 2 others are going on separate vacations to Florida this month before break. I've had students who have been out sick lately. It's flu season and there are colds going around. What does this have to do with time? Well, when these students return from their vacations, they need to get caught up and learn what was missed when they were gone. This doesn't happen on its own. It's not magic, it's time, my time. I gather materials that will help them learn. My contract hours are supposed to be 7:05 to 2:35. So I meet with these students, or really any student that needs extra help, during my lunchtime or after school, after contract hours. The late bus comes and picks students up at 3:30. I also stay late many other days to plan lessons, grade papers, record grades in School Tool, email or call parents, set up science labs, clean up science labs, and put materials away. I could go on and on and on. There just never seems to be enough time. I am giving up my own time unpaid because there is no time in the school schedule for a student to get extra help from me. and I want my students to be successful. I can't get my job done to the best of my ability within contract hours. I care about my students and their growth, so I am willing to put the time in. I'm not special. There are many more educators like me. I encourage you to drive past your schools an hour before school starts or an hour or more after school ends, and you will definitely see a number of teachers still there. You can count the cars in the parking lot. Teachers coming in early and staying late to get their work done because they don't have enough time during the school day. People aren't just staying an extra 30 minutes. Educators are staying an hour, 2 hours or more. And those who do leave at the end of the contractual school day, I can guarantee you they have a bag full of schoolwork going back and forth with them. I am asking you to please take the time to talk to the people who are negotiating. That is both sides, the teachers and the district administrators on the negotiating team, to learn more and do whatever you can to help us settle a contract that is fair. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next, we have Dawn Pixley. Dawn Pixley.
Hi, my name is Dawn Pixley. I'm a Rush-Henrietta teacher. I am a huge advocate of Rush-Henrietta schools. I grew up here, and I had the benefit of an excellent education at Winslow School, Webster Junior High School when it was that, and Sperry High School. I was a Sperry singer, and I traveled to sing in many amazing places: England, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and even the World's Fair in Vancouver. These Rush-Henrietta experiences opened my eyes to the wider world, and I even went on to do my student teaching in Belgium. My strong education also prepared me very well for the demands of college. I would send my own children to school in this district without hesitation, mostly because I am awed by the caliber of the Rush-Henrietta teachers. The teachers with experience here have so much to share, and I have also been very impressed with the quality of the newer hires. The HR department has done a great job of finding well-qualified teachers in recent years. The combination of experienced teachers with newer teachers is really what makes each school so strong. Let me share an example of an experienced teacher, me. I began my career here in Rush-Henrietta in 1991. I have been here observing and learning, changing and growing as a teacher over all of these years. I've seen programs come and go. I have both attended and led trainings, workshops, and study groups. I have coped with a workload that has grown considerably, particularly in about the past 10 years. I have learned a lot of new technology and new ways to teach. Children have struggled and succeeded, cried and rejoiced in my classroom. I have so much filed away in my head that when a circumstance arises, it's like a computer. My brain flips through past programs, strategies, experiences, and in a split second, I can come up with something that will likely work with a current student. That is what all of our experienced teachers can do. When a newer teacher comes to us, struggling with something, we have advice, resources, and coaching that can be invaluable to that teacher. And the newer teachers, they bring creative ideas, things we haven't tried before. They often suggest technology or ways to make learning fresh and fun, but still focused for the students. Younger teachers have grown up in a digital world, and they can help us all navigate the challenges and the opportunities that it presents. We need them. They keep us all young at heart, and we can learn and grow as a staff together. And what the Rush-Henrietta district really needs to do is to support both the newer teachers and the experienced teachers, because you cannot have a strong educational program with just one of these groups. We need both, and we need to have a contract that gives us fair compensation to all of us. Our teachers deserve to have salaries that are comparable to the salaries of teachers with similar levels of experience in Monroe County. Our students deserve an environment where their teachers are supported and valued because it really comes all back to them. Please support our teachers with a fair contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Rachel Sherman.
I have a handout. I always have a handout. But I'm not a teacher. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Rachel Sherman. I've been here before. I'm the mother of 3 children, one who attends Roth Junior High, one at Sherman Intermediate School, and one at Winslow Primary School. It's the issue of early start times at our secondary schools that brings me here tonight. But I guess I would be remiss as a parent and a resident of this district if I didn't also express my support and tell you, board members, that we have had wonderful experiences with the teachers here in the district. We moved here a year ago, you might recall, and we're in our 2nd year, and I just can't say enough about the teachers that my children have had. So I would say if we are all reasonable people, let's just come to a fair contract for our teachers, please. Moving on to why I'm here. So I was here on November 5th when I spoke about a serious problem facing our junior and high school students, the inability to get sufficient sleep based on unnaturally early start times of their schools. So I'm here tonight just to provide more information on this issue. When I was here on November 5th, I provided you with some research showing that districts that start school later bring out the best in their students academically and see them make better choices about the risks they face every day. For example, drug, tobacco, and alcohol use, among other risk behaviors. I talked to you about my son's experience with a 7:05 a.m. first bell ring at Roth. By the way, just this morning when I went into his room to wake him, the first words out of his mouth were, "Mom, I'm so tired." And all I can say to him in response is, "I know, son, I'm sorry. Now, please get out of bed." Last time I said to you, let's not continue to be on the wrong side of science and the growing trend of districts moving to later start times for these students. People all over the state and nation are seeing this as an important problem to be solved. I'm here tonight to make you aware of a recent survey conducted by the Board of Education members taken by the New York State School Boards Association. And by the way, are we a member of the New York State School Boards Association? Okay, so these are your compadres. Maybe you've even taken this survey. For your reference, I've provided a copy of a news report from the Buffalo News entitled, "Poll of School Board Members Find Support for Later Start Times," which was published on October 1st, 2019. In that article, the Buffalo News reported that 59% of school board members in New York who responded are in favor of starting the school day for high schoolers at a later time. 12.5% of respondents were unsure. So that's about 72% of school board members who are in favor of start times or who haven't made up their minds yet. Only 28% were not in favor of changing the time of the first bell for these students. The Buffalo News quotes Dr. Daniel Rifkin, Medical Director of Sleep Medicine Centers of Western New York, as follows. "One of the changes that takes place during puberty is a shift in the sleep-wake cycle to a later time," he said. "Their bodies aren't ready to fall asleep until 10 or 11 p.m., he said. The article also mentions that one of the common objections, the schedule for interscholastic athletics, is solvable. For example, speaking of the Clarence District near Buffalo, sporting events have not posed a problem for Clarence High School, which has started at close to 9 a.m. for more than 50 years. Therefore, I bring to you again my request that I made of you on November 5th. Would you please direct and empower Superintendent Wright to study the issue and develop a logistical plan for achieving a start time of no later than 8:30 a.m. for our junior and senior high schools. I've handed out a copy of the Buffalo News article and my remarks, which I ask be kept with the official proceedings of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? Seeing no one else, we would like to close the public forum. We will move into tonight's agenda. The first item is item number 7, items of a routine matter, items A through N. This consists of the October Treasury Report, transfers of budget, looking at bids, development of a 403B, approval of CSE and CPSE recommendations, and minutes of the last meeting. I will accept a motion to approve the items of a routine matter. Moved by Anne Marie, seconded by Nikki. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It is approved. Next, we will move on to a personnel action. I will accept a motion to approve the personnel action. Moved by James, seconded by Diane. Any discussion on the personnel actions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is approved. Next, item 9, Marketplace Mall. This will allow for the superintendent to enter in a pilot adjustment agreement. I will accept a motion to approve the Marketplace Mall pilot agreement. Moved by Anne Marie, seconded by Diane. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is approved. Now, this will bring us to our first workshop on informational communication technology. Up is Brad and Dina. Let's roll.
You're much faster than I was expecting.
I learned from Bob.
Yeah.
The Bob and me.
Well, Brad's here to make sure the technology works, and we get the presentation up on the slide. All plugged in. So what we're going to do tonight is you received the written report of our plan, and we're just going to go through and highlight the plan and review it with you. As you know, we're very, very proud of completing our 5-year technology plan. And the 5-year technology plan that we completed really focused on the vision of what we wanted instruction to look like in our classrooms to make sure our students were prepared for the college and careers that we're going to enter. And we've been very, very pleased with how well the teachers have embraced this, how well our administrators have led this in the district, and very, very appreciative of the resources we've been given around the hardware, the Chromebooks, building up our infrastructure to make sure that we are positioned well. When you think about that 5-year plan, and I think there may have been one board member here at the time when we did this, but definitely a lot of people in this room, as well as my cabinet colleagues, you know, there was a lot of unknowns to it. And the biggest hurdle we had was just trying to figure out which device, how do we deploy the devices, how do we sustain the devices, how do we develop a system around the technology. And we knew that instruction was the focus, but the charge in the 5-year plan was to identify what the standards were going to be, how the pedagogy was going to look, and then also how were we going to measure if our students were meeting those standards and benchmarks that we set. The good news here is in the 5-year plan, we really have customized the devices, the infrastructure, our systems, a warranty system for the Chromebooks. We could go on and on and on. And we did begin the curriculum and instruction work. However, a lot of the curriculum instruction work is still underway. And as you've heard, even when I did the district priorities a few weeks ago, K-9, we've done a really good job embedding the ISTE standards and ICT skills into our curriculum, and even developed capstone projects that integrate the literacy, content area, and technology. And now we still have a lot of work still to do refining the K-9 work and really starting to implement at the senior high school and develop a capstone for our 12th graders. So with that being said, we're going to share with you a 3-year plan that really is going to be completing the curriculum and instruction work and sustaining and maintaining that infrastructure and the devices that we need to maintain over the next 3 years. So that's what we're going to walk through. I think you should also be aware that the state does require us to submit a plan every 3 years, so this will be submitted as part of our 3-year plan to the state to ensure that we have instructional technology plans and implementation underway. Is there anything else I wanted to say about the introduction to that?
I think so.
Now that we have it up there. So what we want to really make sure is we continue to stay focused, that we don't do technology just to do technology in this district. Technology is a tool that allows our teachers to teach and our students to learn in a very transformative manner, that they could have the access to the internet and the tools necessary in order to engage in 21st century learning. Okay?
Absolutely. It seems remarkable that next month it'll be 6 years since we came before the board with the first plan. Time really does fly. And when we came at that time, we came with this vision that we presented to the board and the board accepted. The seamless integration of technology devices in every classroom that allows students the automatic access to the internet to obtain information, communicate and collaborate with others, and create products of their learning. And as we reflected back and we started writing the new plan, something that really jumped out to us. This vision really focuses on access and devices. And that's really where we were at the time. We needed to build that. And so when we thought about that, we knew we needed a new vision, because we've achieved that with the support of the board, with the support of the administration. As Dina said, we have developed many systems to make sure that our students have the devices and access they need. And so the newest vision that we're bringing in front of you is very focused on what the students are doing, what the skills they're accomplishing are. Students will graduate proficient in using technology to curate knowledge, process information, and communicate their understandings. We want to de-emphasize the technology. We think this is a tool, it's a catalyst. We think it's an incredibly powerful tool, but it's the thinking and the work that goes along with that technology that we really emphasize. We work closely with our teachers and administrators to make sure that we're building into our plans. So with that vision, we had to adjust our mission. And we talked about in there, we really want to make sure the students are leveraging the technology to engage purposefully in their learning, to really become a very active participant in the learning process, to access resources and information, to collaborate with others. We have students collaborating not just within their own classrooms, but across to other schools in the district and outside the district, to experts, to other students. We have one of the teachers here that does here. I saw her. She has her second graders pen pals for many years, writing emails back and forth with, I believe it's Wisconsin, with the class in Wisconsin. We want to make sure they're generating solutions for authentic, real-world issues. We recently, to prepare for our professional development we were doing with the high school teachers, the technology coaches called area colleges and employers and kind of asked some questions about what they're looking for. And really, a lot of what they talked about was problem solving, to be self-starters, to have initiative, to go out and find the solutions and not have to be directed. And so that's something we really want to focus our attention on. We spend a lot of time talking about how you make those authentic experiences for our students. And finally, can they express their knowledge? They need, it's not just enough to learn things. You need to be able to share that information with others. That's when you know you've really mastered a topic or a skill, when you can teach others with it.
So the plan is developed around 6 areas of focus. Digital responsibility, upgraded curriculum, integrated instructional practices, authentic and online assessments, professional development, and obviously maintaining that robust infrastructure and the resources we have. And these areas of focus, as well as the elements you're going to see in a few minutes for each one, were developed and were worked through our leadership team as well as our instructional council. And what our instructional council does is they give us feedback as a committee, help us develop our instructional technology plan, but then they also go back to each respective school staff. And we had a Google form that was shared with every teacher in the district, so teachers could give us feedback around these 6 areas, as well as the various objectives you're going to be seeing in a couple minutes for each area of focus.
All right, so we're just going to give you a quick highlight in the actual plan. Each of the goals for the areas of focus also comes with some objectives. We thought we'd spare you reading all those. So we're going to focus mostly on the goal and talk a little about those. Digital responsibility, you see we've done a little rebranding of that. It was digital citizen. This responsibility really talks about the students understanding their role in it and understanding that they have to take an active participation in this. Foster a culture of respectful and ethical engagement in the use of digital technologies. As you guys know, we've talked about some of the tools we use, including GoGuardian. Students give us the opportunity every single day to talk to them about better and more appropriate ways to use technology. And this has allowed our staff to have really, especially our building level administrators, to have really great and productive conversations about when you're using tools. And it's a huge, any industry you go into, using materials or devices bought by the company and using it inappropriately is an issue that every company is facing. So this allows us to have conversations, to get them thinking about the right uses, and so that's one of the many ways we're approaching this. PBIS is another. We built it deeply into our frameworks for PBIS.
However, we know there's still work to be done, and it will always have to be a focus now in our district. And if you remember when we have our March parent DPAC meeting every year, I see the head shaking, this still continues to be an area where our parents are asking for us not only to teach it and enforce it here at school, but even give them tips at home, especially around social media and even their own personal devices. So it has strategically been placed as goal number 1 for a reason, because before we can even get into the instruction work with our students, we need to continue to ensure that we're keeping our students as safe outside the 4 walls when they're using the devices as we do within the 4 walls of our school.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes, I have a question about digital responsibility. My daughter's in 3rd grade, and she recently got in trouble for using the Google Chat function on her Chromebook. And my son's in 7th grade, and I didn't even know they were given Google Chat. So I learned only recently that there are all these group chats and individual chats going on, and I read them all, and it's happening during instructional time. So I went and disabled his Google Chat, 7th grade, and said, son, you are not allowed to use this. And he said, Mom, every time I go back into school, it pops back up. People are chatting with him all day long, and he's being told by me not to respond. So what are you doing on Google Chat specifically to teach, if you're going to enable it for kids, which I question personally, and as a parent not knowing, which took me by surprise, quite honestly, but what are you doing to teach them about not using it during instructional time and to monitor that traffic?
Absolutely, we use a number of those, and that is a debate. It's an ongoing conversation we have all the time about, technology always has 2 uses. There's always positive and negative uses for them, for sure. What we know is when we allow the Google Chat, has allowed great conversations between classrooms, we've done between buildings, allows students to talk back and forth. There is a natural use of it too, socially, for sure. Our teachers spend a lot of time monitoring that, talking about that. We use products for inappropriate conversations. That's what I was talking about, referring to with the GoGuardian, where if there is inappropriate, explicit, or self-harm conversations, we do get alerted, building administrators and myself. As well as that, by keeping them in the Google Chat, there's 1,000 chats. They can get a chat with whatever product they wanted to. Keeping them in the Google Chat gives us full access to that, and so that allows us to go back and look at records, to pull up, they can't delete those chats. We always have them, again, to have those conversations about the digital responsibility whenever there's a question cut and called.
So, I'm sorry, so you're saying my 3rd grader and my 7th grader have both had training about how to use Google Chat responsibly?
It is embedded within our curriculum, our health curriculum specifically, and also our PBIS program. So yes, how each teacher handles it in their classroom, we leave that up to the professional discretion of our teachers who are introducing it to the students and then reinforcing it as it occurs. So our teachers are well positioned, and do also monitor it frequently with their students. If there's a predominant issue with the student where we need to disable things, we will do that at times. But when we embraced this initiative 5 years ago, our belief is that we were empowering our students and teaching them how to use things responsibly. And when there were students that were unable to do that, then we will address those issues as they come. All right, let's keep going through here for the sake of time. Okay.
Another one that we have spent a considerable amount of time on is upgrading our curriculum. We're looking to provide opportunities throughout the curriculum for students to curate their knowledge, process information, and communicate their understandings. Do you want to talk about this one?
A little bit more?
I had more to say, but
go ahead. You
but
keep
I was
going,
like,
and then
I think
I'll
I stole
jump
that
in.
away from you.
Go ahead.
I can't stop talking about this stuff. So this is where we have really positioned our technology coaches. They work with teachers both for coaching long-term coaching cycles. They also work very closely with our directors to find ways to create and embed within the curriculums. And we target, you've seen them before, in both my program improvement plans as well as the district priorities, where we are focusing. This year we're spending a lot of time focusing on the junior high, social studies, the high school level. We're really focusing on the 10th grade for those incoming 9th graders that did such amazing work with the capstone last year. And we have a number of other pockets that we focus our attention on to really make sure that we're taking a look at that curriculum and embedding as many opportunities as we can throughout it.
And this is where there will be a connection to a lot of the STEM work that we want to do. And when we really look at the ISTE standards, we know the areas around creativity. It's also the design process. Then when we look at the capstone projects and we look at the information we're learning based off of the work our students are doing, design process is an area that we know we really need to work with our students on. They're really good with more of the humanities work around when they're learning in their production, when they're doing their capstones, but when you get more into the STEM area, that is an area we need to expand upon. So over the next 3 years, when we're looking at especially our science curriculum, and as you saw the other week at a board visit at Balmer, we are going through the next generation science standards and putting them all in our curriculum. The whole technology lens is also a requirement under the new science standards. So that whole STEM approach is an area that we really need to think about in our upgraded curriculum.
Yeah, this week is Hour of Code, so many of our schools are using that event to talk about coding, to talk about using logic and developing some coding experience for that computational thinking that we are focusing on. That's really going to be, as Dina said, a major focus in the next 3 years. The integrated instructional practices. This is where we really work with teachers to talk about not just the opportunities that we find in the curriculum and we make sure that are common for all students, but just how they can shift their instructional practices to make better use of the technology. And this involves all kinds of things, a lot of the note-taking that they do, a lot of how they have students express themselves through the writings, through our students are doing a lot more video these days. As you may know, if you've ever looked up how to do something on YouTube, video is becoming an increasingly important media and tool in our society. We want to make sure students are well-grounded in receiving those and evaluating those as well as producing them.
And I think it's important to note here that we want to say a hats off to our library media specialist. They spend a lot of time working with their classroom teachers. Our classroom teachers have done an excellent job really thinking outside the box and really thinking about how do I really take some of the traditional pedagogy in my classroom and start the word we use is shifting it to more innovative practices that will allow our kids to work more in a 21st century learning environment that we're encouraging.
Absolutely. Teachers get nervous about technology, some of them.
Rightfully so.
And absolutely, and it changes consistently. And not just the changes, but things that were free yesterday can become paid the next day. And that's a complicated minefield for them to wander through. So what we tell classroom teachers all the time is you focus on what skills you're worried about, what do you think your students need practice with, and then that library media specialists, our technology teaching assistants, our coaches can help you pair you up with the right tool. They keep very abreast of the changing field, and it changes every single day. One that we have used for many years just went pay last week, and it's become, there's a lot of shifting that needs to go on, but our librarian media specialists stay on that and can help the classroom teachers. So they don't have to be on top of that. They don't have to worry about the tools. They just have to worry about what skills are essential to their students' learning. Authentic and online assessments. And this is really targeting two different areas with assessments. One that I'm sure you guys have talked about quite a bit is the computer-based testing with the state. We started the ELA last year. We are continuing with the ELA. We'll start the math in the next few years. But the state has put up many indicators that they want to put more of their assessments online. And so we want to make sure our students are comfortable taking assessments in that environment. That's why we have the keyboarding instruction. This week is also keyboarding instruction week. So all our 2nd through 6th grade students will take a quick typing assessment so we can make sure that they're on track and learning the typing. But the other one, just as important, is that authentic assessments that we're talking about. This is our capstone work that you've seen models of in our primary, intermediate, and junior highs, really taking real-world issues and topics and doing the research and coming up with solutions and working through it. So this is really trying to make this as meaningful as possible so they see the value of using technology to solve real-life issues and problems.
I think if you recall again, when you heard Dan's speaker, Director of Science the other week, we'll be having new science exams start in another 2 years at 5th and 8th grade, and we've already been told they will be online. So it is the way of the future, and it's interesting too, some of the colleges. I have a good friend who works at Brockport State, and the professors there have already been told that starting next year, all assessments need to move online. So it is the way of the future where things are starting to shift. So our goal is to make sure we're positioning our students as well as we can. For our common assessments in the district, we kind of have trying to get a balanced approach. Some are still paper-based because there's still a paper world. They still need to annotate and do things, by hand. But we also need to make sure we're giving those experiences with online assessments to ensure that they're having that exposure. The last thing we ever want to do is have our students sit for required state assessment or go off to a college or a workplace and not have had that experience. So that's what we're trying to build in, a very balanced approach to it, so we're positioning our students well for their future.
It's not just the education field. When I went for the tests for this certification, while I was there at Pearson's testing center, I saw people taking nursing exams and architecture exams. There's just, almost any field that has certifications will be done online these days.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the New York State assessments. Do you know, because there's been problems in the last couple of years as they've unrolled the online assessments, that there's been big technological glitches on the part of the state. Do you know what the state has done to improve that so that our students will actually have a positive test-taking experience?
Yeah, the good news, Sheila, is we're very well positioned as a district. First of all, we put things in place internally and procedures so that if something does happen, we have a quick response time, as you saw in our elementary schools last year. What the state is continuing to do is they're continuing to rebuild their system, like their server, making it more robust. And now they're actually requiring that all districts must participate in a mini administration session. So that way they can test the capacity of their system prior to the actual testing. So previous years it was optional if you participated in the district-wide assessment test. We did participate. We were one of the districts that did, but not every district did. This year, they are making everyone participate so that there's a test with capacity before the actual test.
And have they said if the capacity is not there, that they're going to do something?
I have not heard that directly yet.
Oh.
No. Okay.
May I ask you a clarification question?
Sure.
I'm Jesse Redlow, resident professional educator. I may have misheard you, but I thought you said that SUNY Brockport is doing all their assessments.
That's what I was informed by a friend who works there, that that's what their goal is.
I would advise you to double check that
Okay.
information as somebody who works in higher ed, because I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I will.
Okay, another area of focus for us, of course, is professional development, making sure that we're giving our teachers lots of opportunities in lots of different settings to use technology in meaningful ways, both in their own learning, but also as well as how to use it best with students. Our Director of Professional Development is working to create new online professional development opportunities which has been well received, the pilot groups that have gone through those. But we're also working constantly with our half days, with our faculty meetings, our program meetings, to embed those opportunities for our teachers to look at the new curriculums, to look at the assessments, to look at new tools, and practice with them and feel comfortable with them. Because that self-efficacy is absolutely the biggest indicator whether teachers are going to use technology in the classrooms, if they feel comfortable with it, if they feel that they have a handle on it and they feel supported in the use, and that it doesn't break down, which is 90% of my job, to make sure that doesn't happen.
And we continue to give the surveys to the teachers every spring so that they can give us an assessment where they're feeling comfortable and their reflections of the supports that they feel so that they need, so that we can continue to build professional development based on what the feedback they give us and the supports that they need.
All right, and the final area of focus, and really the one that most people get interested in, want me to go on and on about, is the robust infrastructure and essential resources. And I can just talk about this one for hours. But really, in the last couple of years, this has become essential. When we started this, when we started the last five-year plan, it was very much making sure that we have infrastructure that could support the level of devices we were putting on this network. We have, between personal devices, phones, students and staff's personal tablets, and we have about somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 devices on our network every day. And we use it so when you talk about being well positioned for the computer-based testing, we actually use less bandwidth during each of those buildings during that because our teachers are using so much video, so much audio, which uses a lot more bandwidth. So when we moved to computer-based testing, our infrastructure actually is less used. But in the last couple of years, there's been a real focus, and you guys have talked about it, we've talked about it, is making sure that we are secure. As banks and retail have had attacks and have really increased their own security and data privacy, they have switched targets. And I'm sure you guys have talked about them, I know you've heard about them at some of your conferences. There has been a major focus at ransomware directed at schools and locking them out. We continuously try to find opportunities. We were hit last week with some phishing attacks that we cleared up quickly once we realized what's going on, but we have to constantly be educating our users, specifically our staff, because they have access to a lot more than our students do. We keep our students in sandboxes so they can access a lot of our resources, but our teachers have a lot more access to our devices, or to our infrastructure. And so we have really had a focus on data security and data privacy that I'm sure I'll be back talking to you guys about more in the next few months.
There's definitely some direct regulations that have been coming down. The Board of Regents is looking at the regulations and giving us more guidance this spring on what we need to do around our processes and procedures, and also around required teacher training on that we'll be coming back to you on talking about.
Yes, last summer you may recall, you guys gave me the fancy new title of Data Protection Officer. The state requires one, so thank you. I tell everyone I meet that's my new title, but
that is our DPO.
That's right, exactly. But really, that is a major focus for us, is keeping our data secure as much as possible, and we have lots of different approaches we are working towards to make sure that's happening.
Okay. All right, so at this time, we'll entertain questions, comments, suggestions, reflections.
Any questions?
I have a quick question. Sorry, Renee Kazakis, a teacher at Roth Junior High School. Did you say that New York State is, I don't know exactly which wording was, but did you say that New York State is mandating that all school districts take tests online this year?
No,
Or did you say if they want to take the tests online this year, then they have to do the capacity test?
If they are going to do online assessments, they are requiring us to do, what's the formal name for it? The simulations. The simulations.
So if they choose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Irene?
Well, first off, I definitely appreciate the focus on technology in our district. I was a part of the first group of 7th graders that got Chromebooks.
I remember that day very vividly.
So I definitely see how it's been really helpful. But I feel like as we learn more about technology and observe the pros and cons. I'm just wondering if you've looked into the effects of technology on students' mental health.
Absolutely, and much like anything you look at, screen time is very, it's not one specific type of screen time. And so a lot of the research doesn't make distinctions yet about what the students are doing. So what the newest research is starting to talk about when students are using it more to produce or to create or to be engaged with their communities or with others, that has positive impacts. But absolutely, we are very focused on having a balanced curriculum. We are, lots of teachers, when I do walk in and do observations, are like, oh, I'm not doing technology today. I was like, yeah, if it doesn't fit today, you shouldn't be doing it today. That's absolutely appropriate. So we want to have a balanced curriculum. We will never have, as Dina mentioned, all of our assessments or all of our common learning experiences on them. But it is something we are concerned about. It's something we take very seriously. And it's something, again, like we talked about, we monitor for concerns about self-harm or other things that students might be feeling.
And we're also very well of social media
Yeah.
and the impacts that have.
Absolutely.
And even though we're not using that directly, we also know that our students have exposure to that. So our counseling office is also working to make sure that we're providing information, not only to students, but to parents and to teachers, so that we are very sensitive to how social media is playing into the lives of our students. We want to be able to be supportive and help them so that we can make sure that everyone stays very safe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just last comment.
Yeah.
So Google Chats is a form of social media, so maybe just be, clarify who's providing social media to the students. So it is an area that I think the school is responsible.
The
say,
messaging app is
teaching.
not social
But
media, but yes.
it's a messaging app, it's not, well, I mean, there are groups of kids messaging one another, that is a social media.
Okay.
No pictures, but it's a social media. Yeah. So I just think we have an added heightened responsibility to
Absolutely.
teaching
We
that
take it very
properly
serious. I
and
totally agree. We take it very
notifying
serious.
parents of that, which I don't think was done.
Any more questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we're going to look at the district policies on second read. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to add to the second reads? Okay, seeing there's no, I will accept a motion to approve the policies. Moved by James, seconded by May. Any discussions on the policies? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? The policies are accepted. Next, that brings us to the superintendent's report.
Okay, there were two items that were submitted for your review and consideration, one being the enrollment projections, the other being the interscholastic sports report from this fall. Are there any comments or questions regarding either of those documents? Just so that you're aware, Pat is going to be presenting the findings from the Space Committee to all of you in January. So there will be more conversation that will be happening around what we're seeing enrollment-wise and in terms of space utilization throughout the district. But I do want to open it up for questions and comments on those written items that were submitted.
Any questions?
And then just a few reminders and FYIs. I too wanted to speak to the meeting that we had with student council leadership today. Was a very good conversation. And I too think we should be looking at ways that we can be greener as a district. And I certainly think that there are opportunities for that in the capital project work that we're doing. I applaud the efforts of student council to take a look at not only what's happening at the high school level, but to take a look at how we can develop sustainable initiatives district-wide And, you know, there will always be push and pull in terms of resources that we can devote to that. But nevertheless, I think that, you know, today was productive because we were able to look at where the low-hanging fruit lies and make some decisions that will help further that initiative. And as Irene said, they're going to be submitting a budget proposal in support of some of these initiatives that we'll review and consider as well. But more so, outside of looking specifically at the initiative, it just made the both of us feel good because it lets us know that the future's in good hands. The way that they handled that conversation, the way that they settled, the way that they set it up, and just the thinking that went into it all. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And your teammates. I also wanted to recognize Pat McHugh and all the folks who are helping to lift the Teachers of Tomorrow program off the ground, and this is actually it's a recruitment effort essentially to begin getting some of our students interested in the teaching profession early. And you know, the initiative is just starting, but I'm told that we have approximately 30 students that are involved in that. I don't know if you have anything else that you would want to add about it, Pat?
Just that I think we're impressed with the number of students and how quickly they put together some programs. I attended a panel discussion that they had with some of the current student teachers at the high school to pick their brains about college and preparing for an education major. And I also want to give a kudo to the 5 teachers and counselors at the high school who stepped up to advise the group. They're doing a great job. So.
Excellent. So that's an exciting initiative as well that we're really proud of. And then just a couple basic reminders. Thursday night is going to be STEM night at Crane. That's going to be at 6 o'clock. The Roth Senior Citizens Breakfast and Concert is going to be at 8 a.m. on Friday morning for those of you that can make it. And just a reminder, even though I'm sure you don't need reminding, that we'll have a special board meeting on the 17th next week. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. Entering new business, did everyone get a chance to look at the timeline for the Elmer L. Gordon Scholarship? Is everyone okay with the timeline?
Motion to accept it.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any, everyone in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Policy accepted, and next we will move into the 13B. It is, per our discussion, I would like a motion for the acceptance of the Warver plan. Moved by Anne Marie, seconded by May. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in favor, any opposed say nay. And I will be abstaining from the vote due to personal reasons. Okay. Next up is our board member reports. And the first is our Labor Relations Committee on the 20th.
I was not able to attend, but Vice President Abdullah was there in my stead.
And I enjoyed every minute of it, thanks. Yes, it was negotiations 101 and the do's and don'ts of what to say and the role of the board members on negotiations. So it was very informative.
Okay. And then we have the Information Exchange Committee.
I think Nick and I will agree. That was one of the best information sessions I sat on vaping, on drug use. They had the Lung Association talk for the first half. They talked a lot about vaping, and just because I was amazed by this, there was over I think you were amazed too, over 7,000 vape flavors. I'm thinking, that is amazing.
Wow.
7,000. There's 600, just in case you need to know, 626 vape shops in Monroe County. So it's very prevalent. They said from 2017 to 2018, there's been a 90% increase in seniors who vape, a 96% increase in 10th graders, and a 74% increase in 8th graders. So it's really alarming. It's obviously an epidemic. There's over 400 chemicals in vape liquid, depending on the flavor. 200 to 400 of them cause cancer. I know, great news. And the thing is that people think it's healthy, but when they heat it up, it changes the chemicals, which makes it more harmful, which people don't realize. And that it's not regulated, it's not a black market problem, it truly is because of the chemicals that's in it. And the second half I thought was fantastic. Some of the people from Webster presented on not just vaping, but all kinds of drugs, but they brought in all this different clothing, which was amazing to me. Yeah, it was. They brought it in so we could see it, we could touch it. All the different clothing that people use to hide vaping and drug use, from socks to hats to, I mean, there was an incredible amount. The insignias on the shirts and what they meant, it was a really good presentation. I don't know if you were.
One thing I really liked that they said that it depends on the person. You have to look at the person as a whole. Just because they're wearing something that may say something about drug use or alcohol use, you need to look at the person as a whole. It doesn't just automatically say, oh, yeah, we need to talk to that person, we need to pull them in right away. You have to look at that person as a whole because they may not even know. Some of it was like, it looked like Fred Flintstone or something like that, like, and it had drug relations to it, and I was like,
I thought that looked obvious, though. That one was obvious.
Well, I mean,
but the diamond wasn't.
The diamond, like, there was so many stuff that you wouldn't even realize, and some people buying stuff might not know. So you really have to look at the person as a whole. Which I really liked that they were like not just saying, oh yeah, you have to pull these people in just because they're wearing this. Is you have to look at that person and make sure their grades aren't dropping and they haven't pulled themselves or they haven't changed groups of people suddenly, that kind of stuff. So it was amazing to see.
And that's the one I would say I'd say go and watch that one. It was
watch
really,
the video. Yeah.
I didn't look at my watch one time.
Thank you. Next, sure.
What are our students reporting is their incidence of vaping usage?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What are our students reporting is their incidence of vaping usage?
As a matter of fact, we do have the youth risk behavior survey that we give, and that's one of the data sets that we use. And when compared to Monroe County and other school districts, we have a very low incidence of vaping in general, but that doesn't mean that we can't be proactive and do more work around it. As a matter of fact, that's one of the discussions that I had with our director of wellness today, in terms of we just had an anxiety and depression workshop where over 100 parents attended, community members attended. And so we're talking about what are some of the next things that we can definitely provide in terms of information, even though it's not yet a problem in our district as a whole or in our community, but the reality is proactive measures are necessary. So it is important to bring that awareness out, and that's one of the things that we're talking about in terms of corporate.
I'm glad to hear it's lower than the county, but what is it?
I can't remember the number right now, but
Is that available?
the youth risk behavior, I could definitely call you, Ms. Sherman, and get that to you tomorrow. Okay.
It doesn't need to be tomorrow.
No, but that's not, we have it available.
Yeah.
The youth risk behavior survey data, we presented it to the board not too long ago, but I can't go through and tell you what it is right
Well,
now.
it'd be helpful to me because then I would know among my son's group about how many people can I think might be vaping. And I'm tuned into it, I'm watching for this, I'm talking with my kids, but I'm not naive to know that there are kids doing this, and I want to be as aware as I can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It was about, Mrs. Abdullah, you went to the Labor Relations Committee about the negotiations, and I'm not trying to be subtle here, but I'm curious, as the RHA has in the past asked if board members could be a part of the negotiations process, so I was wondering if it was possible to hear what the School Boards Association thought of that. Without putting, I don't mean to put you in an uncomfortable spot, but maybe that information could be shared at another time.
This is what I understood from it. It's not advised that the board members be actually on the table negotiations. So they discourage from doing that. Actually, that was someone asked that question. Yeah.
Did they say why? Because in some districts that's the practice. So I'm curious as to why.
It's not their role. It's better left. That's what I understood. It's better left for people who are actually experienced in that arena. Yes, the boards had to be educated and aware and what's going on and updated about the negotiations, but not actually physically be at the table.
Okay. Next up is Equity and Inclusion Steering Committee.
Yes. It seems like a long time ago we met, but it was a great night. The folks from the U of R came with some data information for us. We spent some time discussing it, had some breakout groups. I forget what some of the questions were that, I didn't bring my stuff with me tonight, but spent some time reflecting on some of the data and looking at what other pieces we still need to know before we can put together our plan. And so one of the pieces we're still waiting for was the survey that was going out for our families. So when we meet again in January, they'll have that information for us, and we'll have the opportunity to break that down and start working on further plans. But we also had, oh no, that was the other group, sorry.
All right, thank you.
Well, actually, the group, yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to make that meeting that night. Do you know if they mentioned anything in regards to parents at the elementary level that could not answer some of the questions that were on the survey, and if it was valid, or how they would score or
There was,
measure that?
there was some, I think you might be better able to answer that.
When we looked at the data, more of the parents at the elementary were the ones who answered, and sometimes they left some of the questions blank, but nevertheless, they made some comments as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if they answered, but it wasn't really valid, like, 'cause I know I have two and one at Sherman, and I had to take 3 of them. And so I've had some questions that I was like, I'm unable to answer this question, so I answered it, but I didn't really answer it. So
Correct.
are they able to pull those out and measure those?
They did. They did. They didn't give us the whole scope, as you know, they don't have time to give us the whole
Right.
scope. What they did is gave us a summary,
Okay.
and they're coming back in January to dissect it a little bit more. Perfect.
Multicultural Parent Advisory Committee?
We both were there. Yeah. I think it was just such a wonderful evening that Shane Wiegand was there to give his presentation to the group regarding redlining, and gave a little bit of his history of how he, with the social studies piece, with his curriculum, how he started investigating and pulling this information together to be able to share with his students. And he has been out and about making many presentations to many different groups, and really informing individuals about this practice. A lot of people had no idea even happened years ago, and there's a piece of me that was like, oh, this should be taught in all of our 4th grade classrooms, because it's a interesting piece about our local history. Just the fact that, like, Eastman Savings and Loans, had this practice of redlining folks. So I found it very enlightening, and it created some great conversation that night amongst the group that was there. I don't know, do you have anything else, May? All right.
Okay. Next up is the Youth Asset Team. That's me. I did not make the meeting, but as of the last meeting, they were continuing to work on the MLK information, or the MLK celebration. And the Legislative Committee?
I can update you all on that. I did attend the leadership updated the group on the meetings with local legislators. Some were more productive than others. One of the ones that folks said was really productive was the meeting with Harry Bronson. He discussed the shortage that local districts are experiencing related to bus drivers and teachers, and he is currently working on some legislation that hopefully will alleviate some of the pinch that districts are facing. Did talk about the budget picture. It's at the state level a rather bleak picture right now, which is consistent with what we've been hearing, that this is going to be a difficult budget year. That's something that we're going to have to take into consideration as far as our financial planning. Also talked about the Albany advocacy trip, which took place yesterday, and just a reminder that the legislative breakfast is going to be on February 8th, and local legislators will be there, and the format is going to stay the same as it's been in past years.
Okay, thank you. Next is the executive committee. Bo and I went to that, Wednesday, was it? Wednesday. Routine matters, I do have the notes that I will be disseminating to everybody. But they were just talking about, I'm drawing a blank.
It was
I
a
would-
reiteration of a lot of the same things
policy,
that were
yeah.
talked about at legislative committee in terms of the meetings that they'd had. They went into more detail about some of the ones that weren't as productive. They did honor Leslie Myers-Smalls, who, as most of you know, she's superintendent of Brockport. She's going to be leaving to head to state ed, and she was recognized for her many contributions in support of school communities throughout Monroe County. She's leaving to take the position of Assistant Commissioner for Innovation and School Reform.
I think so.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's right.
So we certainly wish her well. But a lot of the same items that were discussed at executive committee were similar in nature to what was discussed at legislative.
Okay, thank you. Next up is the district safety committee.
The security vestibules at the 3 schools are, 2 of them are gonna be done by February, and one's gonna be done by April break, and they're not gonna use them until fall, so everything's.
By
still-
February, that's even quicker than,
Yeah.
I knew it was all ahead of schedule.
I
That's
know, isn't that great? They said as long as it stays on track, they're not gonna use them until school starts again next year. There's over 40 transportation staff that took the active shooter training and enjoyed it, from what we heard. And then Bonnie said that they're working on, they have a committee that she's heading that's looking to start a food cupboard. Right now, FoodLink isn't taking new applicants, but they're starting a backpack program that they're gonna have 4 dates in the spring that will pack the kids who are recommended by staff. Each building will have a liaison that recommends kids who may need food at home. They're gonna pack those kids backpacks with food. They're gonna have 1-hour schedules. Hopefully, once the food cupboard starts up and running, hopefully that happens, that they'll have it open in 1-hour time increments. Did they say once a month? Is that what they said, Sheila, for when they open the food cupboard?
We don't know that people would be able to go.
Oh, yeah.
It is still a work in progress.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think that's what she said she was shooting for.
The
Yeah.
backpacks.
They were hoping eventually that people could come as they
Yeah.
need it. But that's gonna be more in the works for the fall.
That's
Right.
not-
Trying
You
to
said
figure out
that
how
was-
that would work.
That's good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was like, okay. And then Mike Dinsmore asked that just have anyone who's in the buildings where they're doing the construction, just keep their eyes on the egress pathways, just because, the construction workers don't always think about those things. They're worried about one thing, so we just need to make sure that the exits are safe for all of the people who are in the building. And Mike Palladino is still familiarizing staff with the Stop the Bleed kits and the AED, and there's been a lot of positive feedback on it. So it was a nice short meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next, instructional space committee.
We met last week, and it was a great meeting. We went over the enrollment projections and kind of looked at where space is going to be tight in the next year or two. We were thinking 3, 4, 5 years out, but unfortunately, we have a bubble coming through, and it looks like Balmer and Berger are going to be really pinched for space coming up soon. We'll hear more about that in January. But they had some great discussions on what their recommendations are to the board to figure out how to alleviate some of that for the next several years, so.
Great, thank you. Budget advisory committee.
That's me again. We met last night and went through the program and service review. We had a lot of new members, so lots of questions and went really long.
Last
Yes.
year, we couldn't get anybody to speak, and this year,
Exactly.
Careful what you wish for.
participation.
So yeah, it was just getting started, so it was a good meeting.
Henrietta Youth Development Committee.
That's me. We met on the 25th. We talked about the upcoming open mic night, and the meeting was actually at the Loving Cup was the potential site to hold the event. They talked about who's they're targeting. They're targeting 10th grade and up, if I'm correct, yeah, to participate, and the audience talked about why it should be at the Loving Cup or why it's not, because there's some concern about the place actually offers alcohol, but there's an adjacent room with a separate entrance, and they're gonna have volunteer adults to chaperone, so they got that covered. We talked about the MLK celebration coming up. There's a new venue for it, and I think they already put out the new location.
Not yet.
Not
It
yet.
will come out.
Okay.
The advertisement has been worked on. It's gonna be at
Jesse,
HUCC.
the thing?
Yeah, we met on Monday, the Youth Development Advisory Committee. It is gonna be a Loving Cup, we voted on it, we passed it.
The MLK, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the MLK.
Yeah, it comes
Henrietta United, yes.
Okay, yep.
I'm sorry, which church is it?
HUCC, right across from
That's you,
Sherman.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And one more thing we talked about, oh, the applications for the Hall of Fame are out, and everyone is encouraged to pull one out and hand it to whoever they think should be inducted.
Great, thank you. Upstate Institute?
It's me again. We met today in this very room. It went good. We went over and to decided if NYSBA was something, we had a booth at NYSBA for the first time and decided that we're going to take a year off and kind of see, because it was rather expensive to do all of that. It wasn't a great, I mean, we got some new people, but a lot of them downstate, and with upstate, we do a lot of the Western New York stuff, and to be able to service those people, it wasn't really feasible. In the next 2 years, NYSBA's in New York City, so we don't really think it's going to be feasible to go down there. We also talked about, we looked at all the reviews from the para educator that was just in October. Great reviews. I guess they had a great speaker there. I don't remember the name, but the paras loved it. It was really well received. And then we're looking to increase our membership. We have a lot of districts that are sending people to the training, and it would save them money, and they would also get BOCES aid if they would get the membership through Upstate. So we're trying to get the word out between the legislative breakfasts. We might have booths at both Wayne, Finger Lakes, and Monroe County, trying to get that out. So that's about it.
Thank you. District Wellness Council.
We also met today, before this meeting. Diane said that the first workshop was wonderful. She said about 110 to 115 people came, and the Q&A, she said, was fantastic, and she said that it went so well that they're talking about adding a third workshop, and I think she said that you were in discussion as to what you were going to talk about, but she said it was phenomenal. And then they're going to be working with someone from SUNY Brockport to brainstorm counseling support for K through 3 buildings, so she said that's going to be in the works. And then Jill said there was an uptick in the flu since last week, and the immunizations here are at 99.6%. There's only 2 medical exemptions, and everyone else will be in compliance by June. Should everyone has been wonderful getting on board with it.
That's great. Healthy district. That brings us to the close of the meeting. Board recap. That's you.
I'm sorry, it's gonna take me a while to. We had a workshop by the ICT 3-year plan, and what else to talk about? Upcoming events. Thursday is Crane STEM project. Was it showcase? I don't want to.
Yeah, their STEM night.
Okay, STEM night. And Rock is senior citizens breakfast is Friday. Yeah. So, next meeting is the 17th. That's it.
Great. Okay. I don't know. I want to wait. I like James. He's kind of at his edge. All right.
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Oh, I would like to move to adjourn too. Moved by James, seconded by Nikki. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? adjourned. Have a wonderful night. James, I had you at your eyes. I was like,
I think so. All right, so, let's get out of this. This thing wants to update.